Hi there, Liz Campbell here from Dynamic Intention. Welcome to the In Vino Veritas podcast, which you may be noticing has changed format slightly since the last time that you listened to or watched this. Okay, so this new season and ongoing, it's going to be sometimes me with guests. And the format is changing slightly in that I find for me that I like to really go with the flow of what's feeling good to me. And so therefore, sometimes you might find that there's more than one episode up a week. Sometimes there might be less. I also just want to add in right now that I have actually introduced a subscription option because I will be doing frequent subscriber only episodes of this podcast that include energy work and actually going into more teaching on the energetic side of things, which, you know, I do in my business obviously as well, but this provides a really good way for people to actually, at a low cost, actually be introduced to the energy work that I do. So for those of you who are interested in this and haven't actually experienced anything from me before, I am including links to my YouTube channel so you can get a feel for the kind of thing that I do. But like I said, I'm going to be going more into sort of looking at very more specific subjects with the subscriber only podcast episodes, which will obviously be marked. And for those who are subscribing with the monthly fee, basically you'll be able to access those. And for the rest of you, the free content will be here and ongoing as per usual, you know, and you can hop in and out of a subscription at any time effectively. Anyhow, so what I wanted today was to talk about choice. Okay, it's an interesting one actually, because I have been understanding for myself that one of the biggest reasons why people have issues with manifestation, there are definitely different sort of underlying reasons why people have issues with manifesting things deliberately. It's something I've bumped up against a lot, and I know I talk about manifestation all the time, and I'm incredibly good at helping other people with their stuff. I have, you know, I will admit, I've had roadblocks on being able to help myself sometimes, where I've been able to help other people sort their stuff out and basically use energy work and sort all of their things out, and found for me that it's been hit and miss. And the thing that I found that was underlying all of it for me was the fact that when I was a kid, I was born into a family who I do love dearly. Some of you might have heard me talking about the issues I've had with my mum. I do love my mum. I understand why she is the way that she is. I also choose to keep myself separate from her because I've found that she just doesn't seem to be capable of moving beyond her own wounding when it comes to the way that she relates to me. And it got to the point of me going, I'm not capable or wanting to have to deal with this anymore. It's like she's always been on some level asking me to fix her, and it was putting that job on me, like that was my purpose for being born. And I'm not available for that. I realised, you know, after years of being treated like I was supposed to be her healer, that I'm not available for that. Essentially, and in actual fact, this is a whole nother subject for another podcast. We could talk about the fact that there are so many people in the world who have troubled backgrounds and so on and so forth, who have kids in order to heal themselves, and it then put the job on the child to actually be the healer of the parent. And in actual fact, that's completely dysfunctional, and it's really not fair on the child that they're having. Really, we need to get our shit together, at least to some extent, and or have the realization before we have a child that child is not ours. They're not being born to heal us. They are here with their own stuff that they're here to do, and we need to respect that. Anyhow, that's besides the point. I'm kind of digressing slightly here. When I was a kid, my grandma on my dad's side of the family was really super overbearing. And she basically spent her whole time from the earliest I can remember, which is really early, effectively showing me and telling me in, both verbally and non-verbally, that I wasn't allowed to have what I choose, and that basically she had to choose for me, or other people had to choose for me. My grandma was very controlling, very loving, very controlling. I do kind of, on reflection, feel that the way that she was a massive reflection actually of the fact that she had a lot of frustration about the fact that she couldn't choose for herself. And if you look at it, if you look at sort of feminism and sort of how we have progressed in our understanding of all sorts of things over the past decades, my grandma was born at a time where women did not have the range of choices that we do today. And I do actually honestly think and feel, certainly from my interactions with her, that women of that generation had a lot of frustration, unspoken frustration, about the fact that they didn't feel that they had the range of choice that they wanted. And that frustration got taken out in different ways, including on their families and their children, even if it was passive aggressive, even if it was very sort of contained and held in. That sort of frustration simmering underneath the surface, or even anger sometimes about not having the level of choice that they really wanted in life, then got projected onto other people. And this is why you have these kind of, I'm not going to say bridezilla types, but that essentially women who are incredibly controlling and manipulative in the way that they deal with people, because of the fact they didn't feel like there was any other way to get what they wanted. So they're always trying to control their external environments. And, when it comes down to small children being born into a family like that, that control, manipulation and general ring fencing happens obviously with the kids. And when you're very, very little, you then start to believe that you're not allowed a choice, and it's one of these things that becomes so deeply buried that when you get to that point later on in life where you're going, I'm going to manifest things, I've discovered the secret, I've discovered Abraham Hicks' work, or whatever it is, something to do with the law of attraction, and you kind of go, I'm going to have a go at this manifestation stuff. And in actual fact, that if you haven't actually done the work to resolve the stuff from your childhood that's creating the dysfunction and the distortion in your understanding of your place in the world, and that's still buried in your body and your brain and all the rest of it, your energy in some way, that can get triggered. And those beliefs literally act like a roadblock to you having any success with what it is that you're creating. So it's one of the biggest things that you need to sort of really sit down and ask yourself about, is like, did I in my childhood, and I know that this is certainly true for a lot of the people that I have worked with, that I am working with, that there on some level there is an element of, I'm not allowed to choose, I'm not allowed to have what I choose. I have to, like, if I choose something, I hope for the best, but it's probably not going to happen, or I have to try really hard. There's all sorts of things that can get attached to it. And effectively, when you've got that going on, what do you think happens? Manifestation becomes hit and miss. There are certain things you might allow yourself, small things, because you're kind of like, well, because it's in some way aligned with the things you might have been allowed as a child. And then the bigger things you kind of end up blocking because you think there's no way, who am I to choose this? Like, there's all sorts of things that can come up. Those thoughts that you have when people talk about, imposter syndrome and the thoughts and blah, 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 all of this stuff that comes up. All of those thoughts actually stem from the beliefs underneath. The beliefs create the thoughts. It's not the other way round in a lot of cases. With the deep buried subconscious and unconscious beliefs, they actually create the thought forms that come up and tell you that you're not allowed this, you can't do that, At the point where you start tackling the belief systems properly, and actually working with the energy that's attached to them as well. And there's a whole world of things I could talk to you about to do with belief systems. We're going to save that possibly for another day. You know, once again, this is work that I do with my quantum creation mastermind group. Essentially, there's a whole load of stuff around this in terms of how you can actually tackle this easily and effectively, or you can make it long-winded. Again, it's all a choice. It is all a choice. And in actual fact, we come back to this thing of there are a million different ways to skin a cat effectively. It really is a question of basically finding out what feels good to you, what aligns with your energy, what works for you, not just works for you, but what feels good. So when it comes to like the way that you're going to choose to tackle changing your belief systems and all the rest of it, and you're looking around at like ways that you can be helped in doing that, it's not a question of like there's only one way of doing it. There are a million different ways that you can do it, but it's a question of finding the ones that actually align with your values, feel good to you energetically, and are being delivered by people that you feel like you can have fun with. Because I tell you what, unless you have some kind of weird, morbid addiction to pain and suffering, in actual fact, one of the most important things I would say for you to understand when it comes to selecting any coach, mentor, whatever, therapist even, is to choose someone who feels energetically aligned for you, that you feel like you can have fun with. So it becomes more about play than about suffering and pain and re-traumatization, because that's also possible. This is something I've been discussing with my friend Harris recently, actually talking about shit therapists we've known, shit coaches we've known. You know, this is possibly a controversial subject for some people, for me to be coming out and saying this, but you know, there is a lot of projection that happens in the coaching and therapy world. There are a lot of people that are delivering coaching and therapy who haven't been there themselves and don't understand or have the empathy skills to really like understand where their clients are coming from, and aren't intuitive enough to be able to actually help them well either. And then you end up with a situation where people actually end up having a very unsatisfying experience, possibly get re-traumatized, possibly end up sort of bouncing around a few different places. I've experienced this myself. And it's really, 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 really important to understand that in actual fact, as I've said in many of my social media posts and the book that I'm currently writing, and this is something that I think bears repeating over and over and over and over and over and over again, you can in actual fact muscle test yourself. And I will put a link to my YouTube channel, which has a thing about muscle testing. Also, because I've only got the finger pull muscle test, you can sway test on this too, which is another form of muscle test. You can muscle test on whether something's going to be a blessing or a lesson for you. And you can do that with when you actually look at the people that you're potentially choosing to work with, to spend your money with, when it comes to any form of therapy, coaching, mentorship, or anything related to that, or in actual fact with anything in life. This is going to be a blessing for me, this is going to be a lesson for me. Sometimes you might get that it's a bit of both. That's not a bad thing, depending on how much you like learning. But if you get something's purely going to be a lesson and not a blessing, generally speaking, if something's purely a lesson and not a blessing, then there's going to be some level of pain attached to dealing with that person that's not necessarily just personal, but that there will be maybe friction or something that goes on between the two of you, in which case you can choose differently. Okay, so I do feel like this particular episode really is about choice and about understanding how to make wise choices for yourself. And there isn't a hard and fast rule on how to make a wise choice for yourself, other than understanding whether Something is going to be a blessing for you or a lesson for you, and understanding the importance of having some level of energetic compatibility with the people that you're working with, essentially. But we come back to this whole thing of choice and the fact that if you are carrying on some level, whether seen or unseen, a belief that gets activated that you are not allowed to choose for yourself. Now, it could be that you're not allowed to choose something this big for yourself. You're not allowed to choose something this outlandish for yourself, whatever it is. Okay, there's variations on the theme, basically. Then you'll find that anything that you try to choose that challenges that belief, you're going to have issues with creating, essentially. And so you end up with what I call a manifestation cock block going on, where you're there going, obviously it's not meant for me because it's not happening. There is nothing that you can think of that's not meant for you. Actually, there is nothing in the world that's not meant for you. If there's anything that your heart truly desires and you've been trying to manifest it and it's not working, it's not because it's not meant for you. It's only because you have something going on within you that's in direct opposition to it or creating a massive amount of resistance. And what needs to be done is you need to drill down in and discover what the resistance is so that you can change that. And then go ahead with the creation and the receiving, basically. But it's like we get fed all of this stuff by religion, by spiritual leaders and so on and so forth as well, that in some way we only have a narrow pathway, that there's only we only have one divine destiny, all of this stuff. And in actual fact, that's not true. You have choice. The problem is that you don't believe you do have choice because you've had it drummed into you that you don't. Do you see? Anyhow, I'm going to love and leave you with these thoughts for today, and I will be back shortly, who knows, maybe in a few days, maybe even tomorrow, with another episode talking about whatever wants to come through. I'm very much doing it on this basis from now on. There may not be any wine involved. Today it's in Latte Veritas. I have a coffee here. But yes, I'm sending you lots of love, and I'm hoping that you found this one helpful. And if you're interested in the energy work that I do check out the YouTube links and consider subscribing. $8.99 a month as a subscription to actually get yourself involved with the subscriber-only podcast episodes, where I will be doing energy work and go more in depth into how to resolve things and so on and so forth. Mwah! Lots of love. See you next time.